Hello, 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 everyone. I'm your host, Louise Hicks of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. And I am going in to address something that I saw, and I thought I wanted to give my perspective, particularly when it comes to Black women. To some, I am known as the Mad Black Woman, and that is an acronym for motivated and determined to elevate and support and help to elevate our people to a higher level of consciousness. And I usually come in at least once a week on Sundays, sometimes during the week, to speak about various happenings within our society. And I will give you a little bit of information about myself. Again, I'm Louise Hicks, the host of this podcast, aimed AIMED, the number two purpose radio, aimed to purpose spiritual empowerment hour. And I have a YouTube channel, which is aimed to purpose radio, as well as my website. You can go on and check out my website, which is louisehicks.com. That's www.louisehicks.com. Let me give you a little bit of background about myself. I started a podcast around 2014, myself and my son, and we spoke with people all over the world, various career paths, doctors, lawyers, authors, everyday people like myself and many of you out there. We just talked about different aspects of life, and we had people on our show from various ethnicities from all over the world: Canada, the UK, of course, the United States, Africa. And we just had a great time talking about different subject matters. And with that uh, ending in after 3 or 4 seasons, I decided to start my own podcast in 2022, January 2022, because I saw so much out here on social media, a lot of inappropriate behaviors, and particularly us going back and forth at each other, a very toxic environment for many of us, and a lot of the broadcasts that were being shared across social media. And I thought I would go in and share more uplifting information. And that's why I decided to start this podcast, Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour. And I'm an award winning author, motivational speaker, coach, have a bachelor's degree in social work from California State University, Long Beach, many years ago, because I have a little bit of maturity. In fact, I'm going to be 73 within a couple of weeks, March 4th, 2024. And I'm really looking forward to it because over the years, I have acquired a lot of experience, exposure to various aspects of life that has given me understanding and wisdom. And I haven't had a perfect life by no means, because none of us have. However, I can say sometimes I think of myself as having a PhD, even though I have the bachelor's in social work. I have gone through so much and so many life experiences. In fact, I just finished a master class with some Gen Xers, millennials, baby boomers like myself, all which was all a part of the master class that we're going to continue with a boot camp in March. I call that, everyone calls that, March Madness. So we're looking forward to that. And it was about reclaiming our crowns as Black queens. And what triggered me to do this podcast is because I had seen a young lady that kept popping up in my feed. And I said, well, let me take a look and see what she's talking about. And the topic was about why so many Black women are single. And I have a baby boomer, I have two millennial children, and my daughter is the youngest, who is a millennial. She's 34, and she and I have had some great conversations. In fact, I shared this video with her because I wanted to get her thoughts about it. And she really was not in alignment with what these ladies were saying in this video. And I think I've trained her and brought her up with values and morals, and she's dating a very, very nice, decent young man who has maturity. She has maturity. She has respect for him. He has respect for her. He opens the door for her, and he treats her like a lady, and she treats him with respect as well. So it all comes about on how the environment and what we teach our children, the guidance we give them as parents. And I felt I wasn't perfect as a parent. I did raise my children partially as a single parent. However, they were given the values pretty much of how I was raised, being born in the 1950s and growing up in the 1950s. In fact, in Southern 1950s in the South, migrating to California, where I ended up pretty much becoming an adult in California, which has given me insight on both lifestyles, living in the South and moving out west to California. I was able to live in both environments. Wasn't born with a silver or golden spoon in my mouth either. However, we were taught good work ethics and we were taught values and morals. And it appears that we have gotten so far away from those values in today's society that is very chaotic. There's so much trauma, and we really need to bring about some type of uplift. And it seems that's not happening. And when I saw it's happening, I shouldn't say it's not happening because it is happening. However, it seems to be the more negative uh, things that we see on social media. Seems that those are the ones that get the most views, the most subscribers, and so forth, because it seems like a lot of us thrive on negativity and toxicity. And that's why I decided to do a podcast to bring about an elevation of our people to a more higher level of consciousness, because we need that. We need to unify, we need to grow, and we need to elevate ourselves, do our due diligence, read more. This is 2024. And if we don't start to take in control and accountability, responsibility of our own lives, just think what it would be like about 25 years from now for us as Black people. It appears, based on statistics and what I'm seeing now and the years that I have gone through, that we're going to be at a zero network. Collectively, I'm talking about. There will be a few outliers that you're going to talk about. Oh, so and so got this and got that. But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about collectively collecting the dots together in loving yourself, number one. Because if you don't love yourself, how can you love someone else? And having self-control, designing our life with intention of elevating ourselves. So when I saw this video, it's by a young lady by the name of Nika Onilafor, and I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Believe I am, because I heard her say it. And in watching this video about why Black women are single. So I'm going to share, I won't share all of the video because you can go online and you can watch it for yourself. And again, it's a podcast by a young lady by the name of Nika Onilifor, and she has some great points that she's sharing because if we are not able to uplift one another and give perspective in a respectful manner, that's a problem within our community. And there's so much negativity. A lot of it comes from a lot of the music out here that's toxic, and how we treat one another is toxic. So hopefully, when I give my perspective on this video, that you will take a listen to it and just kind of give it some thought, because I believe I'm giving some solid food for thought. Because oftentimes when my daughter was in high school, as I mentioned, she's 34 now, she's a millennial. When she was in high school, she would go to school and she would share with some of the kids in her classroom, her peers, she would share with them some of the values that I would instill in her, and how she was being raised by me, sometimes as a single parent as well. And her peers would come to me and ask me things and start talking to me because they wanted to hear my opinion on certain things because of what my daughter was sharing with them. So that spoke volumes to me about what some of these young ladies and also young men come to me as well, and they get my ask my opinion about what my thoughts are. So I would ask them, I said, well, do you speak with your mother, your parents about these different things that you want to discuss with me? And they tell me no, because what Crystal tells us that you're instilling in her, we're not hearing this from our parents, and we just chose to come and speak with you. So I said, okay. And it kind of reminded me somewhat of my mother, because my mother had friends of all ages. And most of her friends and people that would come and speak with my mother, who passed away at 92 in 2015, they were younger, much younger than her, but they felt comfortable being in her company because she was not judgmental toward them. She would give them her wisdom and her understanding and guidance. However, she was not a judgmental person. She didn't put them down, because we know that none of us is perfect. We're living the best we can, and when we know better, as Maya Angelou would say, we should do better. And that's the key word. We should do better. So let me share with you this video, part of it. Like I said, I'm not going to share the entire video, but it kind of struck my attention because of some of the things that these ladies were saying. So let's go and share here. And I want you to give me your feedback and your comments about my perspective as a baby boomer. So here we go. Let me open it up a little bit, and we
I need
will
you to hear me.
go
Other
for it.
cultures tend to get this. And when I say other cultures, I'm talking about white culture, Indian culture. I'm talking about other cultures other than African Americans. And a lot of the time what happens is you're mistaking the playboy for a husband, and you're trying to marry a playboy instead of marrying a husband. And that's a lot of women don't realize this. A lot of women don't realize this. And this is why you continue to have such horrible dating experiences, because you could be sitting there ignoring the husband material, ignoring the man that is already put you in his forever category. A man will sleep with you, hang out with you, Netflix and chill with you, and you are not his type at all, but he enjoys the sex, he enjoys your company, he enjoys the fun. And now as a woman, you've put this type of man into the husband material. They looked at the Playboy and said he just wasn't the one, he wasn't faithful, he wasn't ready to settle down. But Rebecca, as a matchmaker, I want you to find me the man who looks like Mr. Playboy, who wants to be loyal and faithful to me and committed to me, and find me my husband, but I want him to look like Mr. Playboy and act like Mr. Playboy. And that's when I stopped matchmaking.
Over the years, there have been a lot of Black women who help Black women who have decided to actually stop helping Black women. So I'll give you some examples. Iyanla Vanzant, who had a show called Fix My Life. Many of you have watched this show. She started getting death threats from people. Some of them, I believe, were Black women. You know, some people, particularly Black women, didn't like her coaching style. So she stopped serving in that capacity as far as her show on the OWN network. April Mason, who was recently on the Dear Future Wifey podcast, she is a femininity coach, and she had an academy where she was helping Black women, I believe individually, coaching them, and she stopped. She didn't want to do it anymore. Rebecca Lynn Pope, who you just saw a clip of, she is a content creator on YouTube. She's also a coach. She teaches courses, more so around, I would say she does more so life coaching. She doesn't outright say it's because of Black women, but she implies this by talking about women and their unrealistic expectations, and then also talking about other women in other cultures not having the same expectations that Black women have, right? So these are 3 examples of coaches who have stopped helping Black women. Relationship coaches are giving up on helping Black women because of our unrealistic expectations. And again, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have standards, but we need to be asking ourselves, can we bring, to the table what we're asking for and more?
And you're blinded to all the red flags, right? That he's really not consistent. He's already showing you he's not into you, right? But then here's the key, guys. This is when I stopped matchmaking. I've told you guys this before. I stopped matchmaking because I had a different standard for men than I realized that a lot of women had. A lot of single women have these standards that are crazy. And I met my husband, and when I was matchmaking, I realized that the women, my female clients, would have not even given my husband a chance. They wouldn't have dated him. Because my husband is a good man, a solid man, right? A strong man. I mean, my husband, but literally, it was like, I realized that's not what a lot of these women are looking for. And I've done videos about this, about how women and their expectations of men have gotten so ridiculous. And
I think Rebecca Lynn Pope is spot on. When she talks about other races or other cultures, and how they're socialized, it is very rare for a woman of another race or culture to make comments and say that, I can do bad by myself, or, I have my degree, I'm good. In my experience, women, again, of other races and other cultures seem to understand the value that men have in their lives and just in the world. And this is kind of ingrained in them from the time they're born, right? Whereas Black women, I think oftentimes many of us are socialized. We're socialized to think that somehow education can serve as a placeholder or can serve as a substitute for a man, for a partner, etc. And this can be a very tricky space to navigate with Black women. Many of us are very accomplished in our careers, and we're trying to navigate dating We hope to, one day become married. And many of our jobs, in my opinion, incite and encourage us to become more masculine. And I'm going to be doing a video about how, as Black women, we can protect our femininity. That's another video. This video, I want to mainly just focus on and highlight and really reinforce what Rebecca Lynn Pope stated. It's absolutely true. We get the categories completely confused when it comes to the men that we are interested in. And my mom actually told me this, so shout out to my mom if you're listening. I remember there was a point where my mom made a comment and she said, you need to stop focusing on who you like and focus on who likes you. And that's as it relates to dating.
And women have a tendency to go from one of these relationships to the next, to the next, to the next, because all you're going off of is who you like and who you're interested in. I'll tell you this, ladies, it almost doesn't matter who you like. It doesn't matter if you like them. Who likes you? Who's into you? Who is seeing you as you're there forever? Because like I say, as women, we get to choose who to date, but men choose who they marry. The man's putting a ring on it, not the woman. It does not matter who you like.
And I think this is something that a lot of Black women are not told. It was a big light bulb moment for me when my mom shared that with me, and she was absolutely right. But I think many Black women don't learn this until later in life. Many of us who do actually get married, some of us tend to get married later in life, myself included. I'm not even married yet. So, and I think that there is a need for the femininity coaching. And I know that some people are getting tired of it because every time you go on YouTube or any social media, you're seeing, videos and various things pop up about femininity. But understand that this is an area that Black women really struggle with. There is a process by which, as a Black woman, to have a successful relationship and especially to have a successful marriage, oftentimes there are things that you need to unlearn. And, there are ways that you need to navigate your relationships differently. And I just wanted to highlight that. I wanted to show that clip. The clip went viral when Rebecca Lynn Pope posted that. The video that you saw was 3 years ago. It went viral. And just invest and spend time with it. It's really about looking at the character of the person, their integrity. There's so many things. I think many Black women look at looks, look at height. Those are not the most important specs. So
I'm going to stop the video because I think we've heard pretty much the gist of it and what these ladies are expressing, which has a lot of validity from my perspective. However, I don't see it as the main reason why Black women are single. And I say that because we're looking at the end result of what Black women are expecting. And one of the things that, from my perspective, why are we comparing ourselves as Black women to other ethnicities? I think that's a mistake to compare us with other ethnicities, other women, as Rebecca said. White women, I guess she's talking about white women, Asian women, Hispanic women, so forth. We should not be comparing ourselves with these women because they have not lived our history. They haven't lived our history. And our expectations, we have to look at the root cause. And if you listen to someone like Dr. Joy DeGruy and Dr. Claud Anderson, that can give you some insight as to why the expectations of Black women are different now. And it's been generational. However, because of people like Dr. Joy DeGruy and me training my daughter, teaching my daughter, who is 34, as I mentioned, and her friends would come to me and discuss things, and I would give them some historical background as to various behaviors and what the expectation should be from us as a helpmate to men, and the man as being the protector, the provider, the preparer. However, we know down through the years, these roles tend to change because of the environment that we lived in and that we are currently living in. Because even now, when we look at our society and how the root cause of all of these various, as you mentioned in here, about women becoming more masculine, what was the reason for that? Do you address why women became, as you state, more masculine? And women had to take on a different role because by design of the way our system is and the emasculation of our men and what has happened in our society, which is all by design. And before we get into coaching on matchmaking, why not coach on the trauma, the healing of Black women and the why, the root cause of where this is coming from? Once you get to that, then you can focus on dating. And that goes for men too, because from my perspective, you choose each other. It's not just that women don't decide who they want to marry. Women decide who they want to marry as well, just like men decide who they want to marry. Once you meet a gentleman, a man, and you see his character, his integrity, you make a decision whether that's somebody that would be a mate for you. And I'm speaking from experience because I've been married before, not just one time as well. And each marriage has taught me something. I brought something from that marriage. And I raised my children as a single parent. I have a Gen X son, I have a millennial son, and a millennial daughter. And we know these generations, we have to interface with one another. And as I mentioned earlier, my mother had friends from all ages because of who she was and what she did and how she treated them. Because first of all, you have to learn to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, how are you going to love someone else? We have to learn also to connect the dots and look deep down within ourselves. And that's something that I coach about when I am coaching, because I also do coaching, as I mentioned, motivational speaking. I'm an award-winning author and a radio host of my own podcast years ago with my son, my Gen X son. And we interviewed people from all over the world about various subjects, as I mentioned. So it's important that we not categorize ourselves in a space where we are comparing ourselves with other women of other ethnicities, because they have not lived our narrative. They have not lived our plight. And that's the problem with us. We are allowing too many other people to dictate what life should look like for us when they have not lived our lives. They haven't been in our shoes. And that's something we have to look at when we're coaching and when we are matchmaking, because some people are not ready for matchmaking. They have to learn who they are, first of all, before they're out here looking to date. And that's something that it has to start in the home. And that's why I hear a lot of podcasters who are out here, they are discussing some of these uh, things that we should be doing in helping our children to learn how to conduct themselves in any type of relationship, because it doesn't necessarily have to be in a dating relationship. It could be in other types of relationships, business relationships, and partnerships in that manner. So when you mentioned about jobs, you said something about what we're learning on our jobs. And a lot of women, single women, are going to work, even though they may have a degree, they're going to work in trauma every day because of the environment that they're working in is toxic. And I'm telling you what I know because I've been in management. I have worked with a lot of young people on the job, and I see their reactions to various situations that are occurring on the job. So we have to look at success, not just being that you have a degree, whether it be a bachelor's, a master's, or a PhD, because that is not the whole of what success is all about. You have to look at all the aspects. And that's one of the reasons I did the masterclass, because we talked about life management. We talked about relationships. We talked about mental health. We talked about finances. We talked about business. All of these come into play when you're talking about success. And one of the major ones would be life management. How are you designing your life? What's your mindset? Are you having that renewing of the mind on a daily basis? Are you reading, doing your due diligence, and not just out here on social media listening to a lot of people who are saying they're experts? And a lot of them are saying they're experts. They're putting stuff out here just to get subscribers because it's all about the money to them. It's not about helping you to understand who you are, to know your history as a Black person, and to understand as a Black female why your expectations are different than other ethnic women, because they haven't lived our plight. So why are we comparing ourselves with other women? I don't believe in doing that. We should not be comparing ourselves with these other women because they have not lived our lives. What we should be doing, from my perspective, is learning our history, getting an understanding on who we are, getting an understanding from that point on the trauma that Black women have gone through. And Black women have gone through more than any ethnicity on planet Earth. And I'm speaking from my own experiences, the environment, what I've read. And we see so much toxic, it's just too much toxicity out here in social media. And a lot of it has to do with just, if I can get these subscribers and make this money, I can tell them anything and they'll believe it. And some of us are misleading a lot of our people. And it's hurting us instead of helping us. And this is one of them from my perspective. We should not be comparing ourselves to other women because they have not lived our plight. They have not had our history. We have a history in America, particularly unlike any other female in America. So I just don't feel we should be doing that, comparing ourselves. And I spoke with my daughter about it and a few other young people, Gen Xers, millennials, and they feel the same way. So in coaching, and why are we making without having these women have an understanding of their historical background. Why do they have these expectations? I hope you're digging into that to find out why. Get to the root cause of it. And we all know what the root cause of all the behaviors and the symptoms within the Black community. It stems from slavery. That's the bottom line. And we shouldn't be sugarcoating these things and embedding into our own people somebody else's narrative on what we should be and why we are the way we are, and at the expectations, because we need to look into our own historical background and see why women, Black women, are single. It's by design. It has nothing to do with the job, except for the trauma we suffer on the job because they don't want you on the job in the first place. And that's traumatic. So perhaps some of this expectation is stemming from that type of situation, and we're channeling it in the wrong manner. And unless we get the healing that we need and deep dive into our feelings, matchmaking is not going to help us. It won't help us. Therapy will, with the right therapist, because of the generational trauma that Black women have gone through, where they've had to take on being the head of the household, take on jobs when the husband or the significant other wasn't able to get a job because of the discriminatory factors out in our environment. And we need to look at all of that. And we need to start discussing these things and stop burying our heads in the sand as if these things didn't exist, that Black women are just out here, oh, with these crazy expectations. But what is the reason behind these crazy expectations? That's what we need to start looking at. And I'm not here to judge your perspective and what your thoughts are, because that is your thought. However, I'm giving a different perspective. Being a baby boomer, been married before, have raised 3 adult children from infancy on, giving them values that I was taught and morals, and teaching them to know their history and the why. And my daughter has turned out to be a very loving, kind person. And she has a very loving, kind young man in her life because he was taught those kinds of values as well. And that's what we need. We need to talk about these things. Parenting. What kind of environment did these ladies come out of that you're coaching? That needs to be discussed before you're matchmaking. Because if you're matchmaking someone that's broken, and we have a lot of people out here, our people are broken for a reason, and it all goes right back to slavery. And a lot of our men are broken. And we choose each other. A man just doesn't walk up and say, oh, I want this person, and we have no control over saying who we want. We have control over saying who we want and who we choose to marry. You don't have to marry a man just because he asks you and wants to put a ring on it, because he may not be the right person for you. And that's what we have to learn. It took me some time to learn this through my marriages. Believe me, I have learned a lot. It can teach you a lot. And we have to learn that the reason this brokenness exists and these symptoms that are within our Black community, that's been generational by design to keep us in our place and keep us as if we are second-class citizens. And when you go out and compare us to other women, there is no comparison of us to other women. They have not lived our narrative. They haven't lived it. They haven't lived our plight. So I just disagree with that, comparing us as a Black woman about to be 73 on March 4th, 2024. And I just feel we're doing a disservice when we go out and we teach our women this, and we have these followers who are listening to this and we're not getting to the root cause and helping to heal and to help them with the trauma. Because of all people, a lot of us go to jobs every day, and what we face on this job, some of these women, I'm not saying this is the case with all of them, but some of these women, this may be a coping mechanism for them to help them to cope. Maybe they are masking it with what they call success because they have this job that they may be miserable on, and because they have this degree. So these are some of the things that we have to look to find solutions so that we can have better relationships and we can bring the king and the queen together to produce children that they can teach and they can learn and heal so that we can bring that family structure back. And that's what we need to be looking at, because if you're matchmaking a broken person, that's not a good match, and it's not a good fix. We have to heal first, and we have to know the root cause of why we have these expectations. And I made a little note here too about women learning our role. That's primary. We have to know our role, and the man has to know his role. Even though now, living in our society and the way things are, sometimes you have to bring in two households, because we know by design our men are being emasculated, and it's been going on. When you go back to slavery and you look at what has happened in our society, that's all by design, where women had to take on a different role, not saying that she should have lost her feminine side of her. No, she shouldn't do that. Because I know as a single parent, I had to take on a different role to raise my children. But I know I could not give them what the father could have given them had he been in the home. However, they had the relationship with their dad, just wasn't in the home. So it makes a difference with us. So that's what that's why I decided when I saw this and heard this, I said, I just have a different perspective, because we should not be comparing ourselves with other ethnicities, white women, Hispanic women, Asian women, whatever. We should not. They have not lived our plight, by no means. Totally different. So that's my spiel on that. And no disrespect to you ladies, because you're expressing your perspective, and I'm just bringing a different perspective on why many Black women are single. And it's not because I'm sure they don't want to be single, some of them, probably most of them, but they need to learn the historical background as to the why and what has caused the various behaviors, inappropriate behaviors within our Black community and with our Black women. And it's starting to happen. And again, I would definitely, if you haven't or if you don't know about Dr. Joy DeGruy, please look her up, because she gives a great many perspectives on post-traumatic slave syndrome, which is generational and has been passed down. Because if you never had the therapy, the healing, thus the expectations that are inappropriate. So that's where we have to start from, the root cause. And to go viral, I'm sure a lot of people love to hear that and want to hear, oh, these Black women, they just need to mimic these white women. And no. We need to heal from the cause of the problem, which has been the oppressors. That's the problem. And once we learn that, we can move forward and we can do matchmaking and dating, because men need to learn the same qualities. They have to learn about their role, just like women Black women need to learn their role. And once we get that, we can blend with harmony our relationships, because once upon a time, Black people stayed together. I know because I lived in those eras when most Black families had the mother and the father in the home. All of this stuff was by design to separate us, and all stem from slavery, and they want to continue it. So we need to start teaching the history, do our due diligence. That's what's going to bring us together, connecting the dots. That's something Dr. George C. Frazier talks about as well. So get some books and start reading and start listening. You might think some of us baby boomers or the older ones of us have just almost stopped living. Well, I haven't. And I listen to young people. I listen to my daughter, and she does not agree with. I had her to listen to this, and some Gen Xers and some baby boomers, and they just don't agree with what is being brought here on social media, because a lot of it is not uplifting and elevating us to a higher level of consciousness. And that's where we should be striving for, so that we can thrive and we can have that self-love, and therefore we can open up to love one another. That's the basics of it all. Because until we do that, matchmaking, and Iyanla, I've seen Iyanla, she's a baby boomer like myself, and I admire what she does as well. However, if she's comparing us with other ethnic groups, I don't agree with that, because they have not lived our plight, and there's no comparison. We need to be listening to somebody like Dr. Joy DeGruy, Dr. Claud Anderson, and some others out here who are giving great advice to elevate us to a higher level of consciousness. Once we get the root cause and have that understanding, we can humble ourselves and come together in unity. That's what will bring about a loving relationship. And we won't have all these single women, because it was by design. Once again, like I said, has nothing to do with your job except the trauma you suffer on your job, because they don't want you there. And that's why I'm doing the master class and the boot camp. And we're talking about these things: life management, relationships, mental health, finances, and business. Those are the things that bring about success. Because success is not just having a career or a high-paying job that you might hate, and because you have to go there and be traumatized every day because they don't want you there. That's not success. And it's not helping us to live our best lives and come together in harmony. And again, I am Louise Hicks, the host of Aim to Purpose Spiritual Empowerment Hour, where I come in once a week and I discuss various matters, politics sometimes, relationships, business, because I'm also a businesswoman and I help businesses to thrive, particularly the trades, where I implement scheduling systems to help them to grow. And that's what we need. I have a client right now in Los Angeles. His business is starting to boom since he automated through my assistance as a consultant, because that's what I do as well. I'm a consultant, motivational speaker, coach, businesswoman, award-winning author. My YouTube channel, please subscribe. AIMED, AIMED, the number 2, Purpose Radio. My website, www.louisehicks.com. I have lots of content out there where I speak about vision, hope, faith, knowledge, and action, because if we're not doing anything, we're not going to have a renewing of that mind, and we will not be elevated to a higher level of consciousness. And collectively, 25 or so years from now, unless we start looking at the picture as a whole, we're going to be zero net worth. And when you talk about these expectations of these Black women, and I agree with you, Nika, that we should have standards, but we need to still look at the root cause of where we are and how we got to this point and the why that women had to take on such roles because of the emasculation. And men are starting to even learn their role now as protector, provider, preparer, and women are starting to learn their role as the helpmate to come together in a loving relationship so that we can raise children to have morals and values because we've gotten so far away from that. And all of this is by design. I'm telling you what I know and what I have experienced. So, with that said, thank you, ladies. And for some reason, Miss Nika, you just kept popping into my feed, and I decided to watch the video, and I'm glad I did. And check out my perspective. My perspective. Leave your comments. And I thank you all for watching. And I hope to come back in soon. And as I always say when I'm parting, your power lies within you. Let it loose because your destiny is your command through your God powered system. That's what I call my GPS. And I thrive on being this mad Black woman, motivated and determined to help support my Black community to a higher level of consciousness. And with that said, much love and talk to you all soon.